that here the whole deep sea physiology is based on two single points, simple points. That's it. What is it? What is the effect of increased pressure on the human body? Why? Because when the person goes deep into the water, the whole water which is present above him exerts a weight which is experienced in the form of a pressure. Okay, and what is the effect of this pressure on the human body? These are the two simple concepts this whole deep sea physiology is based on. So when we're going to study this one, first we have to understand certain basic physical principles which you very well know. So what is that? One is that, for example, we know that at the level of the land or at the surface of the sea, the atmospheric pressure is around 1 atmosphere. Now, and this is the same atmospheric pressure present inside the lungs also, right? So what happens when this person goes into the sea? When the person starts to dive into the sea, when the person starts to descend deep into the sea, what will happen is that the pressure or the weight of the water which is present above him exerts some pressure over his body, not only the lungs and thorax or abdomen, but over the whole body. Okay, and here, and this pressure is dependent upon the length, to be precise, depth. I'm sorry, not length, depth. So here, this the more deeper the person dives into, the more greater is the pressure, or more greater is the weight of the water above him. Okay, so here when the depth increases, proportionally the pressure also increases. So for example, at the normal surface of the sea, the pressure is on 1 atmosphere. If he descends to 33 feet, that is roughly around 10 meters, then the pressure increases by 3 atmospheres. So then that means that at the depth of 100 feet, so for every 33 feet or 10 meters, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. Then if he dives to 100 feet, then what happens is that he'll be experiencing a atmospheric pressure of around 4 atmospheres. That is 3, that is because of the depth, and 1 that is normal present at the surface of the sea. 4 atmospheres. So as the depth increases, the pressure experienced by the person also increases. So this high pressure will cause certain health hazards. Okay, then for small duration of time, it doesn't cause much of the problems. Why? Because the body has the capability to adjust itself to various changes in that pressures around the body. But when the duration increases, the various problems will creep up. These are called as health hazards of deep sea. Then coming to the what is the main problem, what is the main cause here? And the person, if you remember the picture I showed you, the person breathes with the help of tanks which he carries over his back. And what is that gas in the tank is that it is not under normal pressure. It here, the gas, or that is air or oxygen, whatever it is filled under very high pressure. Why? Because there are two reasons for it. One, if the pressure is low, the person will not be able to inhale the gas present in the tanks into the lungs. Why? Because the surrounding atmosphere, surrounding pressure around him inside the sea is very high. Unless until the pressure in the tanks is very high, or to be precise, unless until it is high, then the surrounding pressure, the gas cannot come out of the tank into the person's lungs. So in order to overcome this problem, what happens is that the tanks are filled with the gas under very high pressure. And when the person tries to breathe in, what will happen is that the gas that is stored in the tanks comes into the lungs with very high pressure. And this high pressure can cause certain problems. So what are the various problems? Which is that one common problem is that this gas which comes into the lungs under high pressure from the tanks, because of the high pressure, gets dissolved into the blood. We know that in the physics, I think you are very well in touch with the physics since because up to the last year, that if the pressure and if the gas and the water have an interface with each other, and you apply a pressure on the surface of the liquid, then the gas will dissolve in the liquid, and the amount of gas that is dissolving in the liquid will be proportional to the pressure. Right. So here, as a result, what will happen is that because the air coming from the tanks into the lungs is under high pressure, it will cause the gas to get dissolved into the blood. Okay, and this dissolution of the gas into the blood causes various problems. We'll discuss in detail what are the various problems. Okay, so That is one reason why the tanks are filled with a high pressure. The other reason is that unless until the tanks are not filled with high pressure, it cannot inflate the thorax and abdomen so that the person will be able to take normal inspiration expiration. Why? If the tanks are not filled with high pressure, what will happen is that the person's thorax and abdomen are under immense pressure from the surrounding water. As a result, the person will not be able to expand his chest. And if the person is not able to expand his chest, he cannot breathe in and breathe out. So these are the two important reasons why the tanks are filled with high pressure. One is, if the tanks are filled with high pressure, only then the gas from the tank goes into the person's lung. That is one thing. And the second reason is that if the tanks are not filled with high pressure, the chest and abdomen cannot be expanded or inflated. And if doesn't happen, the person cannot take in air in and out without any with ease. Okay, so that is the important reason why the tanks are filled with high pressure. But filling the tanks with high pressure causes what is the important problem is that it causes the gases to dissolve in the blood. This causes problems. Okay, so we are going to discuss what are the problems that arise because of high pressure causing the gas to dissolve in the blood, right? And these are put together called as hazards of deep sea diving, right? Then here, what are the various hazards? One is nitrogen narcosis, other one is high pressure nervous syndrome, acute oxygen toxicity, dysbarism, air embolism. Okay, right. So here we'll discuss one by one. Nitrogen narcosis, it is the name itself. What is narcosis? I think you heard the term called as narcotic drugs or narcotics. What do you mean by narcotics? Maybe you've heard in television most of the times. Yes, these are nothing but substances which are abused by some people so that they can derive euphoria. Why? Because most of the narcotics give the feeling of euphoria. What is euphoria? Yes, can anyone tell me what is euphoria?
Feeling of high, feeling of happiness.
Yes, feeling of high, feeling of happiness. Actually, the correct word is, correct meaning is false, feeling of a false elevation. Or this here, the person is in high mood, and that is false. And that high mood is present as long as the person is under the influence of these narcotics. Okay, the same thing here. This nitrogen causes this narcotic effect. So here, what is the important thing I want to tell you is that here the oxygen, to be precise, like tanks which they carry, the divers carry, are not with complete oxygen. They are not 100% oxygen. They are only 80% nitrogen and only 20% oxygen. So it is a mixture of oxygen and nitrogen. This is the first when the humans started to dive deep into the water with all the protective gear and everything. The tanks which they used to carry a mixture of oxygen and nitrogen. Where nitrogen is 80%, oxygen is 20%. You can get a doubt why oxygen is not 100%. Why can't we carry oxygen tanks with 100% oxygen? Anyone? Okay, if the person carries tanks with 100% oxygen, it causes oxygen toxicity. Whereby, because I think you are very well know the concept of free radicals. So when the person consumes a lot of oxygen under high pressure, it results in production of superoxide free radicals, which can cause damage to the nervous system and various parts of the body. As a result, to prevent that toxicity of 100% oxygen, the tanks are mixed with 80% nitrogen and 20% oxygen. Okay, now here again, this is not without any side effects. This 80% nitrogen is again under high pressure. We know that 80% these tanks are filled with high pressure. Now this high pressure nitrogen gets dissolved into the body and into the blood and results in a condition called as nitrogen narcosis. It is nothing but similar to alcohol intoxication. When the person consumes alcohol, he is free and devoid of all the inhibitions. He will be on a very high tone. He will be in a very happy tone, high tone, elevated tone, whatever it is, and which is seen on alcohol consumption. The same thing is seen in nitrogen narcosis, because under high pressure of the in the tanks, the nitrogen that is entering into the lungs during inhalation gets dissolved into the blood, and this dissolved nitrogen produces these effects of narcosis, intoxication, which is called as nitrogen narcosis. And here, not under usually small pressures of nitrogen will not cause this one, only very high pressures of nitrogen. For example, when the pressure of nitrogen until it is 4 atmosphere doesn't cause any problem. When the pressure of nitrogen increases by 4 atmospheres, it initially causes euphoria. When it goes beyond 5, it causes this nitrogen narcosis. Okay, so what is this problem with this nitrogen narcosis? Here, the problem with nitrogen narcosis is that the person will be actively moving inside the sea. He will be doing diving normally, but what is the problem is that his intellectual quotient or intellectual ability will be very much disturbed or very much affected. Like for example, he will forget what and for what he has went into the sea, for what he is diving. For example, he went into the sea for mining or exploration of oil and gas, whatever it is. He will forget what he has gone, for what he has gone, and he will be simply diving inside the sea without any purpose. Why? Because he has there has been intellectual alteration, and he will be under this effect of this nitrogen. As a result, he will be laughing, he will be freely swimming happily inside the sea. All these things are seen because of nitrogen narcosis, and this effect is only because of this anesthetic effect of the nitrogen. Okay, altered consciousness or intellectual alteration. Right. So then the next one is a high pressure nervous syndrome. Again here, now when the scientist understood that mixing the tanks with 80% nitrogen, it is causing this problem of nitrogen narcosis, which is killing most of the divers. What they have done is that they have come up with another substance or gas instead of nitrogen. What they started is that they started to replace helium with nitrogen. So what it is a 20% oxygen and 20% helium. What they explained is that here use of helium has its own advantages. What are the advantages? Helium is very very light. As a result, it doesn't give much resistance to breathing and breathing out. As a result, the work of breathing is decreased. Why? Because helium is very light, so it doesn't cause resistance for breathing in and breathing out. As a result, the work of breathing is decreased, so the person can work inside the sea for longer time. That is one reason. Other one is that the narcotic effect of helium is only 1/5 of the nitrogen. That means helium also causes narcosis, but the effect is only 1/5 of the nitrogen. That is very mild one. And the other one is that the helium is very much less soluble in in blood when compared to nitrogen. Blood and body fluids, helium is less soluble. Why? Because helium is very lightweight. So we know that if the gas becomes lighter, it is tougher to get the gas dissolved into the fluid. Why? Because you have to apply more and more pressure. The same thing here. If because the pressure inside the tanks is fixed at some high level, for the helium to dissolve into the body fluids, it needs very high pressure, and that is not possible. So helium dissolves in the body fluids to a lesser extent, and as a result, because suggesting of these advantages, so they started to replace nitrogen with helium. Then what happens is that after some time, and after they understood that this helium also is causing certain problems. What are the problems is that it causes high pressure nervous syndrome. Here, helium, when under high atmospheric pressure, it gets dissolved, and again it also shows this narcotic and anesthetic effect. And what are these effects is that because it is very high lipid soluble, it causes direct effect on the neurons and nervous system, which is characterized by tremors, drowsiness, incoordination, and then as a result, here the physical ability of the divers is also unaffected. In nitrogen, if you remember, the physical ability of the diver to swim and do the various actions like digging and exploring is not affected. But here, only the intellectual part is affected in nitrogen. But helium, not only the intellectual part, not only the nervous system is affected, but also the dexterity or physical capability of the person is also impaired. So that is why they have found out this, and they named it as a high pressure nervous syndrome. Okay, why? Because high lipid solubility of the helium directly affects the nervous system. Right. Then coming to the third one, oxygen toxicity, which we just discussed. Here, the tanks cannot be filled with complete oxygen. As a result, they're mixing with other gases. And here, while doing this, they make sure that they remove all the carbon dioxide out of the gas that is being filled in the tanks. Why? If they allow the carbon dioxide to be in the tanks, what will happen is that when the person takes in the air, what will happen is that the carbon dioxide will diffuse very rapidly into the blood when compared to the oxygen. I think you know this diffusion of gases. When we discuss it is diffusion of gases, carbon dioxide diffuses 20 times more than the oxygen. Why? Because the diffusion capacity or diffusion coefficient of carbon dioxide is 20 times more than that of the oxygen. As a result, the carbon dioxide will go into the lungs or blood to too high quantity than expected. As a result, it can cause accumulation of carbon dioxide in the body and can cause a carbon dioxide toxicity or carbon dioxide poisoning, which can cause death of the person because of affecting the brain and the nervous system. As a result, they take a lot of care and isolating the carbon dioxide out of the gas in the tanks, and make sure that there is no carbon dioxide in the gas that is filled in the tanks. That is one thing. Other thing is that we just discussed 100% oxygen if we give into the give to the divers. This 100% oxygen under high pressure will readily dissolve in the blood and body fluids and causes formation of superoxide free radicals, which can cause damage to the nervous system. As a result, 100% oxygen also need advised. The same thing, the same concept is utilized in the ICUs. In the ICUs also, if you remember, oxygen, we'll discuss these things in the applied aspect of respiration further later, but just until then you understand that in ICUs also, oxygen, 100% oxygen is not given to the patient. Oxygen is only given to some around 2 liters or 4 liters or 6 liters like that. Here, 100% oxygen is not given. Why? Because if the 100% oxygen is given for a prolonged period of time into the patients in ICU, what will happen is that this 100% oxygen will cause inflammation of the alveolar epithelium, causing damage to the lungs, and the person might die of respiratory failure. Okay, so that is why in ICUs also oxygen will be given, but not 100% oxygen and not also at high pressure. When the person is very severely ill, severe critical condition, also very for short duration, maybe like half an hour like that, they want to give it for a prolonged period of time. Okay, so that is the same thing, same concept being utilized in the ICUs also, right? So that is oxygen and oxygen toxicity. And then what are the symptoms of oxygen toxicity? Nausea, dizziness, irritability, disorientation. So nausea, you know what is the nausea? It is a medical term for vomiting sensation. Dizziness, again, it is a reeling sensation. The person will be having a feeling of this, surroundings will be rotating, this dizziness or reeling sensation. Then coming to irritability, and irritable person will be restless. Disorientation. What is the disorientation means? Normally, if you are asked, you will be knowing, no, where are you? What is the location? What is the date? What is the time? What is the year? All these things. Who are you? All these things. This capability of a person is called as orientation. And if this orientation is lost, it is called as disorientation. It means that the person is in confused state. If you ask the person, doesn't know who he is, where he is, what is the time, what is the date, what is the location, he will not say anything. This condition is called as disorientation. Okay, so these are the features seen in oxygen toxicity. What are the other features? Disturbed vision, pulmonary damage. I just told you, inhaling oxygen 100% causes inflammation of the alveolar surface, causing damage to the lungs. As a result, the exchange of gases will be affected seriously. Then convulsions. It is nothing but fits. Layman's term, fits. In medical term, it is called as convulsion. Okay, epilepsy. Right, so these are the certain side effects of oxygen toxicity. Right, then coming to this concept of dysbarism or Caisson's disease. So here, just a minute, right? So what is dysbarism or Caisson's disease or decompression sickness? Now, let me tell you, I forgot to tell you, these individual concepts like what dysbarism, oxygen toxicity, nitrogen narcosis, each of them can be asked as a 3 marks question separately. This is a very, very important topic. Of all these things, the one which is most favorite for the examiners is dysbarism, Caisson's disease or decompression sickness. Is the most favorite questions for the examiners. If they want to give any applied question in respiration, the favorite questions, there are some favorite questions which are given repeatedly. Like for example, what is apnea, what is periodic breathing, what is Boyart's respiration, what is Kind-Stokes respiration, all these things, dysbarism, all these things are very much favorite questions for examiners as far as respiration applied aspects are concerned. So remember this, it has this dysbarism concept as a very high chance or probability of you getting as a question. Why? Because previously the number of questions were only limited, like for example 10 or 12 questions only in the previous before CBME. In CBME, I think the questions number has increased to very much, considerable increase in question number. So the examiner has a free hand in giving lot of number of questions, and dysbarism is a very important topic, So don't forget to revise this before the exam. Dysbarism, Caisson's disease, decompression sickness. So here it is very simple concept. There is nothing for you to mug up here. You have to understand one single point. What is that? Is that in physics that when I think you have seen this experiment. There will be a long glass tube into which water will be filled, and if you release a bubble of gas in the lower part of the glass tube, by the time it comes to the surface of the water, the size of the gas bubble increases. Anyone has seen this one? It is shown many times in the televisions and various experiments also. Yes. So here, what is the concept here? It is very simple. Here, when the bubble is at the lowest part of the water tank, what happens is that the bubble is experiencing lot of pressure. Right? The whole weight of the water present in the tank is acting on the bubble when the bubble is at the bottom of the tank. As a result, the size of the bubble will be less. When the bubble starts to rise, the amount of pressure experienced by the bubble is decreasing. As a result, the gas will start expanding. As a result, the bubble becomes larger and larger. So by the time it comes to the surface, it is biggest in size. Why? Because the pressure continuously decreases, allowing the gases to expand. As a result, the size of the bubble increases. The same concept is here in this decompression sickness. Here, what will happen is that here, when the person deep sea divers go deep into the sea. Okay, when these divers go deep into the sea, what will happen is that here we know that they will be inhaling air under high pressure. As a result, because of this high pressure, what will happen is that the gas that is being inhaled get dissolved into the blood and body fluids in the dissolved form. It is not in gaseous form, it is a dissolved form. Now, there won't be any problem as long as they are deep inside the sea. Why? Because as long as they're deep inside the sea, there will be under a lot of immense pressure. The body will be experiencing a lot of pressure. As a result, whatever the gas that is present inside the blood and body fluids will be under a lot of pressure. It will be kept in the dissolved state only. It will be kept in the dissolved state only. It cannot come into gaseous state. Then the problem arises only when the person ascends rapidly. The person who is in deep sea, in very depth, if the person ascends slowly, it doesn't cause any problem. Why? If the person ascends slowly the dissolved gas becomes gaseous, it slowly escapes into the lungs, which is exhaled. There is no problem. So as long as the diver is present inside the deep sea, or as long as the person ascends to the surface in a slow rate, it doesn't cause any problem. The only problem arises when the diver ascends rapidly, which is shown in the Hollywood movies. I think if you remember, in most of the Hollywood movies, the hero who descends deep into the sea ascends very rapidly at a very jet speed. That should not be done. If the ascent occurs rapidly, it causes this condition called as Caisson's disease, decompression sickness, or dysbarism. So here, what is the problem is that I think you could have already understood the problem. The diver ascends rapidly. What will happen is that the pressure on the dissolved gas in the blood and body fluids decreases rapidly. As a result, instead of being slowly coming out of the blood and body fluids into the lungs, suddenly bubbles will appear inside the blood and body fluids, inside the blood vessels, inside the organs, inside the joints. inside various parts of the body, inside the brain, muscles, whatever the place is, sudden bubbles will arise, and these bubbles will cause damage. So, for example, if they present, these bubbles form inside the blood vessels inside the brain, they slowly expand and cause rupture of the blood vessels inside the brain, which can cause stroke. If if the bubbles rupture in the muscle, it can cause destruction of the muscle tissue. In the liver, liver, it can cause destruction of the liver. In the heart, they can cause myocardial infarction. So depending upon the location in the joints, if this suffers, they cause severe pain in the joints, and if it is muscles, causes myalgia. So various problems occur if they ascend rapidly. Why? Because sudden ascent, it causes I think I just discussed, no? If for every descent of 10 meters, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. So if the diver ascends rapidly, the pressure decreases rapidly. The gas that is dissolved from until now becomes gaseous, forms bubbles, which can cause rupture of the blood vessels and tissues, damage, and it can cause this condition. So here, what is the prevention for this? So, or what are the, first we'll discuss what are the symptoms for this. If these bubbles suddenly appear, what will happen is that they not only cause blockage of the blood vessels, and they cause not only death or destruction of the tissue, there are certain other symptoms, like for example, paresthesia. What is paresthesia? Altered sensation, or to be precise, numbness. So I think you have experienced definitely one time in your life. For example, if you're sitting in some position for a prolonged period of time, and if you don't move, then suddenly after some time, like 1 hour or 2 hours, if you start moving, you'll feel that numbness of that particular part of the body, especially see in the legs here. So this numbness is because of continuous pressure on the nerves, decreasing the blood pressure to the nerves. The working of the nerves will be go down. It causes results in numbness and paresthesia, altered sensation. Paresthesia is nothing but altered sensation. Then weakness, then paralysis, respiratory failure. Then it also causes conditions like dyspnea. Why? Because if these bubbles are blocking the pathway between the these pulmonary vessels connecting the heart and the lungs, there won't be any blood supply to the lungs, which causes decreased diffusion of gases, causes dyspnea. And then, as I told you, if this happens in the brain, it causes stroke. If it happens in the heart, it causes myocardial ischemia and all these things. And this here, all these things could cause decompression sickness. So here, is it avoidable? Yes, it is very much avoidable. How to prevent it is that one thing is that the person has to ascend slowly. If the person ascends slowly, then the pressure decreases slowly. The gases slowly come from a dissolved state into gaseous state, which will escape through the lungs to the external atmosphere through exhalation. But if this is not possible, for example, this is very much possible. For example, the divers might be attacked by certain animals inside the sea, like sharks and everything. Then what will happen is that the person cannot ascend slowly. Why? The person ascends slowly, he will be losing lot of blood, and if he loses lot of blood, he can go into shock. So he has no other option, but he has to ascend rapidly. Or sometimes they can be damaged to the tanks itself, which can cause a deficiency of gas or deficiency of air. Then again, the person cannot ascend slowly, he has to ascend quick, and this causes what you call decompression sickness. So what will happen, or what you have to do is that it is simple. These when the person is experiencing the decompression sickness, as soon as the person ascends to the surface, the major of the large ships which go under what you call in studies, what happens is that they have a special chamber called as a pressurized chamber, which is called as a decompression chamber, What is the advantage of this decompression chamber is that here, as soon as the person goes into the chamber, the pressure inside the chamber can be increased and decreased. And so, as soon as the diver ascends rapidly, and there is every chance for the diver to experience this decompressed sickness or dysbarium or Caisson's disease, immediately the diver is put into the gas chamber or pressurized chamber. As a result, the pressure inside the chamber will be increased, so that the diver will be experiencing the same condition as which is present inside the water. That's why it is called as pressurized chamber or decompression chamber. So here, as soon as the diver is put in the chamber, pressure is increased rapidly, so that the diver experiences the same problem. So what happens again? The gas that is formed into bubble will again dissolve back into the blood and body fluids. Then what they do is that they slowly reduce the pressure inside the chamber, as though the diver is ascending at a slow speed from the depth to the surface. As when the slowly the pressure is decreased, slowly the gas that is in the dissolved state becomes into gaseous form, which will be exhaled by the diver. So this the same process of slow ascent is mimicked here in the decompression chamber. So the diver immediately put into the chamber, pressure is increased to high levels. Slowly at a gradual rate, the pressure is inside the chamber is decreased, so that the gas doesn't form, the dissolved gas doesn't form bubbles, but instead slowly removed through exhalation. Okay, so that is nothing but treatment for decompression. Okay, next time when you try to see the YouTube videos, you can go through these YouTube videos. There is a lot of YouTube videos, very beautiful videos, where how the divers are resuscitated, not resuscitated, are saved from this problem of decompression sickness or Caisson's disease. Right. Then what are the other treatments is that they're given hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Also because oxygen, they might be suffering from this problem. So oxygen also can be given to overcome this problem. Okay, to some extent. Like then again. Then the next one is air embolism. So here this is nothing but the side effect of this decompression sickness. As we just discussed, when there is a sudden formation of bubbles in the circulatory system, what will happen is that if the bubble is very small, if the bubble is very large, it will block the blood vessel and will block the blood supply to the succeeding organ. Then it will cause ischemia, death, damage to that organ. But if the blood gas bubble is very small, what will happen is that this gas bubble will start circulating along with the blood in whole of the body. And sometimes what happens is that the most dangerous problem is that this gas bubble, if it is carried to the brain where there are end arteries. You know what is end artery? Yes? You know what is end artery? Yes, end artery. What is end artery? End artery is nothing but normally artery has to divide into arteriole, meta-arteriole, capillary, which continues as a vein, venule, and venous vein. But here sometimes in some parts of the body, like example brain, the arteries end abruptly, which are called as end arteries. And what is the dangerous problem is that if this same small bubble goes into the cerebral circulation and blocks this end artery, and because it is a dead end, it cannot go any further. It will block the blood supply of the particular part of the brain. It can cause serious brain injury, like for example stroke. And if the same thing happens in heart, in myocardium, it can cause myocardial ischemia. So this air embolism is nothing but continuation of this dysbarism or Caisson's disease if it is not treated, not taken care of. Okay, this if the air bubble is large, it will block the blood supply. If it is very small, it will be carried throughout the blood circulation and deposited in some parts of the body. Right. So this embolism, I think we have discussed this embolism in hematology. Normally, the blood should not clot in the circulatory system, but sometimes because of certain issues, certain problems, small clots will be formed in the blood. And this blood, if this clot is at that one particular point, it does not cause any problem. It simply causes a little obstruction. But if the same clot gets dislodged from the point of this generation and starts circulating the body, it is called as this embolism. And if the same is thromboembolism, and if the same thing, very good, and if the same thing occurs because of air, it is called as air embolism. And can anyone tell me, I don't expect you to know this one, what is the other condition where we see air embolism? Very important clinically in hospitals. I don't expect you to know this one, but it's very important. When you become house surgeons, this is very, very, very important. You should be very careful.
Intravenous injections.
Yes, IV injections. Other place? Other place, blood transfusions. So here what happens is that during when the patients are being given IV injections, what happens is that when the sister is an experienced one, what they do is that before starting the injection itself, before starting the intravenous injection itself, they will drain the whole air out of it by allowing the saline to run throughout the length of the this connecting tube. Okay, then if that doesn't happen, what will happen is that if the the air is not allowed to escape by running the saline through the IV set, what will happen is that as soon as the if the IV set is connected, all the before the center saline enters into the body, the air escapes into the venous system, which can cause air embolism, which can be very dangerous. So when you become a house surgeon, always make sure that you completely remove the air out of the IV set, so that before starting the injection, so that the air embolism doesn't occur. Okay, very good, excellent. I'm very much happy for that. Right. Then coming to this last one, very important. I think you know this one. This is very much interesting, which is called as scuba. What is scuba? There is name for abbreviation for scuba. Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. It is an aid with which divers dive deep into the sea and can sustain for some period of time with the help of the air that is coming or stored in these tanks. And this we discussed this. Is what you call either with mixture of nitrogen or helium, okay, and then all these effect of helium nitrogen we discussed. I'll try to describe this apparatus. Okay, it is very simple, not much of this one involved, physics or this one involved. Here it is very simple. What is the basic part is the 2-cylinder. Depending upon the period of stay, they will be carrying 2 cylinders or 1 cylinder. Then here, like for example, they want to stay for longer period, they'll carry 2 cylinders. If they shorter period, 1 cylinder is enough. Then these 2 cylinders are connected with each other with a connection, and this connection is connected with the hose pipe. And this connection between the cylinders and the hose pipe is guarded by a wall, which is the first wall. You can see here, this is the first wall. And what is the specialty of this wall is that these are unidirectional walls. Unidirectional walls. That means they will allow the gas to come out of the tanks into the tube only. They will not allow, or they will not let the gas to come from the tubes into the gas tanks. The one reason is that if this is not prevented, what will happen is that, for example, if the diver dives deep into the sea, and if the pressure inside that part of the sea is very high, what will happen is that if this valve is bidirectional, because of high pressure inside the surrounding sea, this will push the air back into the tanks, and will not allow, this high pressure will not allow the pressure air to come out of the tank so the diver can breathe. So to prevent this, the valve is unidirectional. If the valve is bidirectional, air will not come out because of the pressure is too much high on the surrounding sea. Right? So because if it is unidirectional, it will allow the oxygen or mixture of air and oxygen to come out of the tanks into the hose pipe. Then you can see is the hose pipe which is connecting the mask. And here at the connection of the mask, again you can see one more valve which is called as demand valve. It is in the name itself. Depending upon the demand, this valve opens. Again, it's by a unidirectional. It is not bidirectional. It is unidirectional. So, what is the demand valve? Is that whenever the diver wants to inhale gas, what happens is that he will try to inhale, and when he inhales, it causes a suction pressure. And when the suction pressure is created, this valve will open, allowing or forcing the air which is present in the hose pipe into the lungs of the diver. Now, this occurs, this is the process of inhalation. What will happen during exhalation? When the diver exhales the air out of the lungs, what will happen is that it will cause a pressure of a positive pressure inside this valve. As a result, the valve will be closed. And what will happen is that because the valve is closed, the gas will not go into the hose pipe, but will be escaping to this back. You can see this black cap-like structure, and it escapes to this one. So that the air that is going into the lungs will be facilitated, and the air that is coming out of the lungs will be led to escape out of this black wall-like structure. Okay, so this is the process how the diver takes in air and leaves the air during inhalation and exhalation. It is guarded by 2 valves. One is at the gas tanks, other one is at the mask. And depending upon the need, the diver will be inhaling the gas, and after that, once if the oxygen is finished, the diver will be exhaling the gas through this one. And yes, okay. Then the topic is finished. I'll try to close the topic if there are no doubts. Any doubts? Anything you want me to tell? Ask. Can I close the class? No doubts? Okay, then okay, I'm closing the class. All of you have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.